Hello, my name is Greg Garman, and I believe in the power of design. See, most people think of design as the stuff that we make. I've designed buildings on multiple continents. I've turned old payphones into storytelling machines as an art installation. As a teacher, I've created numerous lectures and worksheets for my students. But that's all the stuff that I've made. See, I'm of the school of thought that thinks that the outputs, like the buildings and the worksheets, are not the most important part of design. The most important thing that we can do is design the experiences that come from the decisions that we make. So maybe, for example, you might remember the first time that you ever voted. Do you remember that experience of feeling empowered and excited to fill out your ballot and submit it into the machine? That was a designed experience. Do you remember the frustration when you leave a parking garage and you're sticking your ticket into that little kiosk and it won't take the credit card and people are piling up behind you? That's a designed experience. So more simply put, for me, design is about the experience that people have with the stuff that we make. Now, I know that things can be designed poorly, but I innately believe that design is a tool for good. And I believe that designers are fundamentally focused on making the world a better place for the people that we work with. And because I so deeply believe in the goodness of design, I've really only ever focused on its ability to create joy, have impact, and to make the world a better place. But I was confronted with an irrefutable truth of evil by design. I saw the design of violence, vilification, othering, murder, and ultimately genocide. In 2017, I visited a Holocaust Memorial Museum. It's designed by a world-famous architect, and the experience is that you walk along a zigzagging path down a long corridor. And with each room, you go through the experience of the Jewish people through the Holocaust and into present day. With each room and everything that I saw, my heart got heavier and heavier, and by the time I got to the end of the museum, I was overcome with grief. I was streaming tears thinking about all of the loss and death of so many people. Now, I knew the high-level story of the Holocaust. I had learned about it in history class, and I had heard firsthand stories from the family members of my childhood friends. But the thing that changed my life that day in the museum was seeing all of the creative and designed artifacts of the Nazis. In those exhibits, I saw hateful lies drawn by talented artists. I saw documentary films created by some of the best filmmakers in Germany at the time. There were cool posters for protests and rallies. There were also uniforms that were fashioned and tailored to empower people to hate. And there were armbands that were designed to alienate others. There were models of epic architectural imagination for cities and buildings, and there were also designs for mass murder. I saw in those exhibitions all the same skills and talents that I had revered so wholeheartedly as being good. I saw the skills and talents of my friends, my mentors, my family members, who are architects and filmmakers and fashion designers. And inevitably, I also saw my skills and talents there too. See, I wonder actually if our beliefs are a little bit delicate and vulnerable if we're willing to admit it. That we're all maybe a little bit like a kid who's leaning on the back two legs of a chair, and we might experience something or learn something that causes us to wobble, and we get a rush that we might fall. But we tend to find our way back to the same tenuous balance and the same old beliefs. But what I know is that there's something fundamental that happens in our brain when our beliefs are shaken back to our foundations. And for me, that day in the museum, it was as if somebody had walked up behind me and kicked the legs out from underneath my chair. I had hit the ground, and I couldn't catch my breath. I was confronted by the power of design when design is used for evil. And as I was grappling with this idea, I realized that actually I don't think that design has a self-directed morality. I think that design is imbued with the purpose and the intent of the designer. Design is a tool. Design is like a hammer. I can use a hammer to build a home for my family, or I can use the same hammer to smash out a car window and to take someone else's stuff. So in a flash, I was actually buoyed by a vision of what if we used all of those same designerly talents and skills to uplift, to build belonging, and to help each other. And I wondered, how might we align our greatest aspirations for good with the powerful practice of design? So in that moment, in that museum, and in my heart, I started co-designing peace. I imagined it as an informal and creatively emergent movement. At the moment, it's just a whisper. It's a nudge on the shoulder to do better. And it's a reminder that we might be able to use our creative talents in small ways to improve the world around us. So as I sat with this idea for a few years, I got the opportunity to join the Buckminster Fuller Institute with their design science studio. I was one of 144 artists and designers from all over the world that started to think about big ideas. And we would meet and talk and listen to lectures and host workshops. And I started to form some of my own foundational ideas about what this idea was. I created a definition, a working definition for what co-design peace was. And it's that peace and design for peace is any creative act that is to the benefit of 100% of life on Earth. And that little foundational definition helped me to start to think through some design principles, which is a tool that we use to kind of guide what we make as designers. And the first one that has guided me everything going forward is the one that I want to share with you here today. And it's this idea that peace is self-defined and not bound by the antithesis of war. I realize that we don't define love as the opposite of hate, and yet if I had asked most of you before we started this talk today, you might have defined peace as the end of war. But what if we think about it as something bigger, something more aspirational, something more holistic, something that could be self-defined and self-directed to help us figure out what to do? I also started thinking about this idea that world peace is a really big idea. Like world peace. I'm not sure I can visualize that. And actually, it's a little bit of a hard concept to even wrap my head around as one person. What could I do that could have such a big impact? And it kind of reminded me of this bumper sticker that used to make me laugh as a kid that I've never quite forgotten, which says, "Visualize world peas." Right? It's like, oh, I can visualize that. But I realized that this is actually what design is great at. Design is great at taking big, complex, and wicked problems and breaking them down into small, tangible, and actionable elements. With design, we're able to take these small elements and to start to consider what are everyday experiences that we might be able to do that could increase peace in the world around us. And if we did it together, if we co-designed these experiences, that we might be able to start something that could have a bigger impact. So in the spring of 2022, I invited students at the University of Texas to co-design peace with me. My day job is I'm the director of the Center for Integrated Design, and I'm a professor of design here at UT Austin. And this class didn't have any of the normal stuff that you might expect in a college class. There were no lectures, there were no slide decks, there were no worksheets or books. I just had this story that I've shared with you and an invitation that we might be able to co-design something together. We would meet once a week, we would gather around the table, and we'd see what could we design that would increase peace in our world. We pulled all the work together into this newspaper. And so the newspaper is not co-designing peace, the same way that any newspaper is not the world itself. But the newspaper is the story of the work that we did, and it became a vessel for these larger and more emergent ideas. So today, I'd like to share some of the stories and some of the work of the students in the hopes that it inspires you to take action in the corners of the world where you have influence for change. An example of this work is that one of the students, Maria Miner, decided to design a garment that helped her to build peace with her own family. Maria designed a ruana, which is a traditional garment from Colombia, and she describes it much like a poncho. Maria's ruana is designed to help her feel more connected to her heritage and her family. You can see that there are hand-dyed scarves that are exploding from the heart, a symbol of the love for everyone that came before her. There's also a large golden bird that is all about the stories that her grandparents used to tell her. Even the garments that we wear, the clothes that we wear, can be imbued with peace and the intent to have peace with ourselves, with our families, and even with the past. So I want to take just a second to respond to something that you might be thinking, because oftentimes I'm thinking it when I tell this story. And even now, there's a voice in my head that says, "Gray, who do you think that you are talking about peace? Why are you the one to be bringing this conversation forward?" And I don't think I'm approaching this work naively. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Ghana, where for 27 months, I worked with a small community on projects related to gender parity and food security, and health, water, and sanitation. As an educator, I built multiple design programs inside of universities across the country. And as a designer, I've worked on 4 continents where I've seen firsthand the innovative and impactful work of design and how it is beneficial to all people. My personal journey for peace started that day in the museum. And I know that that is not the only movement to design towards evil. But I also know that co-designing peace is not the only idea of using creativity to try to improve the world around us. I'm deeply inspired by the stories of historical figures and the movements that have come before us, and I'd love to share one with you. You all might know the work of Dr. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. I love that work. It is deeply inspiring. But I want to share the story of Ella Baker. Ella Baker was also an incredible part of the Civil Rights Movement. She decided to move to the South and work with students to start the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. They trained each other in the practices of nonviolence and non-resistance. They used creative efforts like the lunch counter sit-ins as an opportunity to actually increase conflict and also increase dialogue about the issues of civil rights. They even invented things that had never been done before. Like in 1961, they started the Freedom Rides. And Ella Baker actually was often at odds with Dr. King. She didn't believe in a great leader movement. She didn't think that one person would be able to change everything. She believed deeply in the opportunity of working with students, using education, getting large groups of people engaged and excited to make change. And as a teacher, I'm inspired by Ella Baker. I love the idea that we might be able to use learning experiences as a way to engage more people and to practice some of these things to create a grassroots movement. So the newspaper, which I hope you have a chance to read, is full of articles and stories, and there's art and photographs. It's an incredible amount of effort, full of peace and wonderful ideas. And I want to share with you one of these methods. Anytime that I start to introduce co-designing peace, I like to practice some of these things so that everybody has a chance to start to do this work together. So I'm going to introduce to you a first draft for your own personal project for peace. I'd like you to look under your seat. The seat that you're sitting in should have a card taped to it that should look like this. And you're going to need a pencil or a pen, something to write with to do this quick activity. You all got it? Okay, great. I can see everyone's getting their cards. I have two questions for you, reflections that I'd like you to think about. The first question is, what is something that you're good at or that you enjoy doing? Maybe you're great at hosting dinner parties. Maybe you love to garden. Maybe you're one of those special people that just loves Excel spreadsheets and accounting, right? What are you good at? What would you do if no one asked you to do it? I'm going to give you a few seconds to reflect on that, and I would like you to write it in the first blank on the card. The card's a little bit like a Mad Lib. You'll fill it in as we go. So what's something that you're good at or enjoy doing? All right, got it? Here's the second question. What's something that you value and you wish to increase in the world around you? Maybe you wish for more kindness in your community. Maybe you want higher volumes of laughter in your groups of friends. Maybe you care deeply about mental wellness or reproductive rights. So I want you to reflect on what's something that you value or something that you wish to increase in the world around you. And when you've got that, I'd like you to write it in the second blank on your card. I'll give you a few more seconds to think about it. All right. If we combine these, we have our first projects for peace. I wonder, how might we use what you are good at to increase what you value in the world? How do you use your love of cooking to support the food insecure in your community? How do you use your joy in gardening to sustain the butterfly population and the ecosystem that you live in? How might you teach us all some meditation so that we can better navigate the scary unknown of our future? So this is the idea. How might we design for peace? I'm not asking you to be Dr. King or Ella Baker. This is not something that one person will change for the whole world. It's an opportunity for all of us to take small creative actions that might be able to add up towards massive change. So as we wrap up, actually, I want to do one more activity with you that I love to do in class. We're going to do a visualization. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Would everybody be willing to close your eyes with me? Imagine that we are in the future, and we're going on a field trip, all of us together. We're going to the museum. As we enter, we start walking a zigzagging path down a long corridor, and we're following the journey of the human race and our progress towards peace. In some of the first exhibitions and the exhibits, you start to see designs that have helped people to have more peace with themselves. In the next rooms, you start to see experiences that have helped people to have greater peace with their communities. In the next room, you see projects that have helped people to have peace with the living environment and even the planet Earth itself. Towards the end, you notice there are projects about peace with the unknown and navigating our ambiguous futures. And in one of the last rooms, as you look up, you see your own project for peace there too. As we leave the museum, you push the doors open and you walk into the warm daylight sun. As you look around, what do you see? How does it feel? I'd like you to open your eyes. Join me here again in the room. This is my invitation to you. How might we co-design experiences together that could lead towards that more peace-filled future? And if my design for peace added to your design for peace, and your design for peace, and your design for peace, what would our world look like? How might we be able to co-design to the benefit of 100% of life on this earth? Thank you so much. Take care, y'all.